Good afternoon, everyone. Albert Einstein once said, a clever person solves a problem, whereas a wise person avoids the problem. The avoidance doesn't say that you are neglecting the problem, but you are taking necessary precaution to avoid occurrence of this problem. So think about our industry, construction industry. Are we really solving our problems, or are we avoiding our problems? Or are we just creating more problems? So when it comes to Sri Lankan construction industry, we are creating more problems. So because of that, there is a premature death of most of the construction organization. One more thing, in our industry, there's a monopoly created by few number of large construction companies. Because of that, the SME sector has been neglected and they are struggling to retain in the industry. So in this research, I am trying to researching on the area of construction SMEs in Sri Lanka. So welcome all of you to my presentation. It's on enabling lean among small and medium enterprise contractors in Sri Lanka. I am Tharusha Ranadeva and my supervisors are Dr. Asanka Sandanayaka and Dr. Mohan Sirivardhana. So the outline of today's presentation, starting with research background, methodology, research findings, conclusions and way forward. So quickly move on to the SME sector of Sri Lankan context. Actually, there were no published evidence or published definitions for Sri Lankan SME contractors. Now we know SME sectors differ from country to country, industry to industry. Therefore, there is a need to have a proper definition. So for this study, I have developed definitions based on the annual turnover of a company because I was unable to get the number of employees. So I have considered only annual turnover, whereas SME category is from Sri Lankan rupees 16 to 750 million per annual turnover, whereas it's approximately US dollar 0.1 million to 5 million annual turnover. So I'm quickly move on to the next slide, that is the challenges faced by construction SMEs. So lack of job continuity, as I said earlier, is the biggest problem they are facing today. The deficiencies in construction industry, difficulties in operating environments. So not like the developed countries. So my country is still a developing country. So there are so many other problems they are facing. For example, lack of technology and also competition within the SME sector. Let's forget about the large construction companies. But still, SME sector, they have a huge competition within each other. So it's a very big problem for them. So they need to be different. They need to adapt for this changing environment. So likewise, so Bertelsen and Koskela 2004 specified, we need to develop and implement new construction processes yielding higher value at a lower cost. So that is the rationale for selecting a lean for construction SMEs, because in my country, some of them have even doesn't heard about the word lean. They have their process improvement methodologies. They have some of the techniques which we are saying as lean techniques, but they don't know about the philosophy of lean. So that's why I'm planning to implement lean or enabling lean in the construction SME sector. So this is the research gap. Basically, this is just a part of my PhD research, and this is a very initial stage research. So we know in the industry, most of the projects, they are neglecting the minimization of non-value adding activities, which is one of the most important principles in lean. So we know there are so many researchers, scholars specified that SMA too can be benefited by lean by adjusting their processes accordingly. And when it comes to Sri Lankan industry, lean application is limited to very few number of initiatives, and they also for the large construction companies, not for the SME sector. So as I said here, it's still in infancy for construction SMEs in Sri Lanka. According to Koskela's lean construction principle, the first principle is to reduce the share of non-value adding activities, from which we can improve the processes as well as improve the flows where it will ultimately create the value. So investigation of the extent to which non-value adding activities are identified by SME contractors in Sri Lanka is the rationale for this research. I'm moving to the next slide, that is about non-value adding activities. I don't need to define it what it is, but we know it is any activities that uses resources without value creation. We know there are 8 types of weights basically which will directly affect the cost as well as the time. Then the problem is what are the root causes. So, I found some of the root causes, for example, issues in methods of construction, attitudes of people, waiting for instruction, lack of design, lack of human resources. So, likewise there are some of the root causes that I found from the literature. But are these root causes applicable for Sri Lankan context, and are they really applicable for SME contractors? So, that is what I am going to find through this using this methodology. According to Tomalin 2005, there is a good saying said, the importance of going to the Gemba and repeatedly asking why to explore the root causes to improve the system. So, I have conducted a literature review and developed my theoretical framework, then conduct a case studies. So, under case studies, the methods I used during the case study is semi-structured interviews with project participants from top managed to the shop floor level workers, non-participant observation of progress meeting, as well as study of substantial of the project report like SBD documents, contract documents, etc. And then the data were analyzed using 5 whys analysis, because that's where we can find what are the exact root causes. So, let's move on to quickly to the research findings. So, I have developed 5 whys analysis for each and every non-value adding activities, but here I am not going to explain each and every, because otherwise I will need a full day to explain the whole framework. So, I will just explain one set. Let's take the inventory. So, inventory is a non-value adding activity. So, I found the basic or the most critical factors affecting inventory is obsolescence, damaged goods, transportation delays, large site stores of material. So, out of this, damaged goods considered as the most critical, because it causes by number of other factors. So, then I ask again the question why the goods are damaging. Then the reasons as listed here: poor material delivery, poor quality of materials, inappropriate materials, poor storage of materials, and outdated equipment, equipment shortage, and unreliable processes. So, likewise these factors I found through my research, and out of the fact unreliable process considered as most critical because it causes by 11 other factors. So, as you can see it here, why the processes are unreliable, that is my next question. So, poor coordination, poor planning, poor leadership, poor decision making, likewise those things will directly affect to the success of a construction project. And also likewise poor design, lack of time, lack of communication, and continuous change of scope and objective. So, it is one of the critical issue in the Sri Lankan construction projects. And out of these factors, lack of time is the most critical. And then again I have asked the same question, why? Why you do not have time to do the work? Then poor project management, poor labor supply, inexperienced workers, knowledge level constraint. So, likewise, right, I am not going to explain each and every, because I do not have that much of time, and lack of facilities, and you know my country is a developing country. So, of course, we do not have that much of facilities, especially with the technologies. Now, when I was at the conference, most of you are talking about BIM implementation, the problem with BIM implementation, but I was wondering, when we are applying BIM in our construction projects, still we have not implemented them properly. That is the problem we have. We need to implement, and we need to create the value by using these techniques. And out of this, the most critical one is poor project management, as you can see this one in the red color. So, poor project management, the root causes I found is lack of finance, insufficient training, lack of individual capacities, lack of networking and collaboration, and lack of action learning. So, as you can see, this is the basic 5 whys analysis I developed for inventory, and I will show you my final framework. This is my final framework where each and every factor has a reason. So, this will be really helpful for construction SMEs to clearly identify what are their problems, what are they lacking. And you can see here, I know it is not that visible, these are the 8 types of non-value adding activities or types of waste, and under that all the courses I have been listed, because some of the courses and most of the courses are similar, right, most of them are similar. So, finally, as you can see it here, these are the last 5 root causes I found, and I will you can see from this one, this inventory, waiting and defect. They are the most critical non-value adding activities categories that we can found in our construction industry for SME sector, not for large construction. And I'll quickly move to the next slide. Here I have only put the reasons for Y3, Y4 and Y5, because Y5 is the most important part, lack of final root causes. Lack of finance, insufficient training, cultural inertia, that's also a biggest problem in my country. Lack of individual capacities, lack of networking and collaboration. Now we know when we are in a conference like this, we are good to know about so much of things, but when it comes to construction SMEs, they even don't like to go for seminars, workshops, where they can get so much of knowledge. So that's a very big problem. They are even not going for the free conferences, free seminars. They don't like on going those things. One reasons maybe they are lack of time and lack of finance. So as you can see, both Y3, Y4 and Y5 reasons are about the lacking capacities. So their reason needs to identify what are these lack of capacities in terms of individual capacities, organizational capacities and environmental capacities. So these are the next step of my research, where I am going to explain in detail how to build the capacities, because there is no point of just finding the root causes. You have to know how you can avoid or how you can remove these root causes and avoid occurrence of non-value adding activities. So these are the conclusions. As I said earlier, in Sri Lankan construction SMEs, defects, inventory and waiting are the major non-value adding activities categories, and most of the construction contractors, they have not adequately identified the majority of their non-value adding activities. So that is the major problem. They don't know it as an non-value adding activities, and they don't know it as a cause. And as I said earlier, these are the major root causes, and the framework will guide the construction SMEs to identify the importance of identification of non-value adding activities and what are their root causes and how you can address them accordingly. And also by analyzing the framework, they can even be implement inexpensive or zero cost solutions to avoid occurrence of these non-value adding activities. I am quickly moving to the way forward. So as I said earlier, a detailed understanding of the processes and extensive exploration of all possible causes using 5 Whys analysis will reduce the non-value adding activities. So some respondents already expressed their willingness to implement lean to overcome non-value adding activities, but lack of capacity identified as a major constraint. Actually in our industry, some of them are implementing some of the lean techniques in ad hoc manner, but not properly. So that is the problem. So that will be the next phase of my research study. So as a concluding remark, in order to be competitive in the industry, we need to be changed. We need to improve the value. So growth is painful, change is painful, but nothing is as painful as staying stuck somewhere you don't belong to. So use 5 Whys analysis, try to find out your non-value adding activities and try to overcome them to increase the value. Thank you very much.